Are you struggling with reality? Does every time someone asks you to sing in a minor chord, you have the urge to phone a lawyer? Have all your ghostwriters gone on strike? Well, don't worry, because now's your chance to join the party next door. All you have to do is grab an album concept and just borrow it from another artist. It's not stealing. We're copyright lawyers after all. Paid for by the law offices of lawbrey. Shout out to Baca. We don't have a weird case around here. Well. It's that time. The long-anticipated and promoted new collab album between Drake and PartyNextDoor. Some sexy songs for you, featuring a lot of dollar signs and also some bunnies. Shout out to Freddie Gibbs. Well, in true Drake fashion, this album launch has started with no drama at all. Besides the fact that the brand new album cover and concept is claimed to be stolen by another Toronto artist who goes by the name of John River. Now, in the early hours yesterday, John took to his Instagram stories to go on a rant going after PartyNextDoor and OVO regarding the brand new album release. Which then it felt like Mr. Mobtize might have made a call, because then John deleted his story. But by then the internet had already caught it, had already been sharing it and talking about it, which then led John to double back down, make sure he made a post out of it, and also repost it all to his story. So let's check out what he said and then we'll go from there. PartyNextDoor wanted to get on a call after my video went viral in the country. Now he's referring to his song Hope City 2. On this call that lasted around 2 hours, he told me he watched the video 20 times and me in front of the Monroe Towers was labeled new, innovative, and iconic. Now I actually lived in Mississauga for 6 months when I was over there playing on my contract. Mississauga is right next to Toronto, but one of the icons as you drive around Mississauga that everyone could see is those two towers, the Monroe Towers. And John sets up his video in his framing so that he's performing in front of the two towers, but it looks like he's just as tall as the towers, sort of making a statement because he's from Mississauga, he's putting on for his hometown, and he's using that to represent his heart in his track. Why are you getting attention instead of me is exactly what he said. For over an hour, he then told me and tweeted and then deleted, all those tweet and deleters, Drake knows all about them, that I needed to always pay him homage. You're young and you don't want to get blackballed. Really sounds like a threat there, that you have to keep paying me homage and pay the king that's old, like I'll continue to tax you. What in the racketeering's going on here in the music industry? The rest of the call, he was fixated on every aspect and detail of my video, the towers, and my vision for the city. Multiple people were present. I told him I respect his music, but homage was strange. I would never ever claim a freestanding building as my own. Now this is key because this is what a lot of Drake defenders were saying and were pointing out, and we'll get to that. We'll compare the artwork. But anyways, telling someone after obsessing over their work, you want to be involved, dissecting it, being rejected, and then stealing their identity and reselling it as your own is insane. Taking this further or any other direction will be painted as crashing out. I don't want anything. The Bible says, speak truth against injustice, defend the poor, and fear no man. I don't care about anything else. Everybody says don't sell your soul in this music industry, and yet when you speak up against something clearly immoral and wrong, they rush to protect the same predators they warned you about. Very interesting that he uses the word predators here. Obviously, we all know the Kendrick Lamar situation and the tie-ins there and the accusations on that end, allegedly. Sorry, we don't want any more lawsuits. I love my city. They know where I'm headed and believe in my potential. Nothing else needs to be said. Now let's take a look side by side at the two images. Now, to be completely objective, if you step back and you look at it, there's no way that you can claim copyright here. This would never stand up in a lawsuit. There is a lot of marked differences between John's image and Drake's and PartyNextDoor's. Obviously, John is filming during the day. The lighting of his shot is very different. It's using warm colors, whereas Drake is filming at nighttime. You've got the winter, the snow happening, the fur coats on. It's a very different aesthetic, very different setup. One is winter and dark, one is summer and bright. Just two totally different emotions and feelings from it when comparing the art and looking at it side by side. Also, as John very smartly points out, and a lot of people have pointed out, like, you don't own the Monroe Towers, right? That's an icon in Mississauga that everyone always tries to take pictures in front of. If you're a tourist in Mississauga, you take pictures in front of those towers. Like, they stand out amongst the surrounding cityscape. Like, it's always those towers that everybody can see that I talked about while driving. You always want to take a picture in front of those towers. So he's not the first person to film in front of those towers, to take pictures in front of those towers that way, to position himself in this way. But if you want to talk similarities, what I do find interesting is obviously if you look at like the curve of Drake going over his shoulder, it's similar to the curve of John in his shoulder and the way that the towers just curve into it. It's almost like the towers kind of fit the body texture and the outline of the individual standing in front of it. And that's the way that John positioned himself. And that's also the way similar to how Drake is positioned too. Or PartyNextDoor. Actually, I can't, like, it's a little blurry, the hand. I can't tell which is which here, but I'm going to go with Drake on that one. I think Drake would be rocking the white furs. Just trying to get in touch with his true side. You know what I'm saying? But again, if you zoom out from the situation and if you step back, at this moment, it's still a very he said, she said, and it just depends on who you're going to believe. Because again, John doesn't own this concept. It's not completely original to John. But it would be one thing if Drake and PartyNextDoor came up with this album cover and then posted it and John said, oh, they're stealing from me. But there's no pattern. There's no history of established connection between OVO and between John. What makes the situation really interesting and what turns heads for me and is worth investigating is because there is an established connection between PartyNextDoor and between John, because PartyNextDoor has seen John's video. PartyNextDoor liked that video so much that he felt the need to speak to John about it, to pick his mind about it, right? To acknowledge that he's watched it many, many times. So you do have that precedent and that acknowledgement, and it doesn't take a genius to go, oh, now he's followed through on this concept. He's acknowledged that he's watched that video a ton, that he's a huge fan of it, that he wants to mimic John, that he wants to understand what made John so successful with that video. And look, now all of a sudden, those principles are being applied to his art. And I don't care what anybody wants to argue. Like, that's just using basic deductive logic and the powers of deductive reasoning to get there. And if this narrative is true, with PartyNextDoor saying stuff like, you're young, you don't want to get blackballed, like, that's just classic manipulation right there. Which, again, would it be illogical to look at if he's already trying to manipulate John in this way, right? And that's how he's looking at it. And even statements like, why are you getting attention instead of me? That just puts you in a very narcissistic mind frame. And that, to me, suggests a character of someone who would have no problem stealing someone else's art, stealing someone else's concepts. And John also mentioned that OVO tried to sign him. They wanted him to be a ghostwriter for them. So you definitely have this precedent set and this past connection between OVO and between John. But the smoking gun for me would be receipts now. If John brings receipts of an established connection to the table. And this is the difficulty, because at the time you do something and maybe you're starstruck and you're enamored. Like, you hop on a Zoom call, you hop on a Skype call, and you might not think, oh, I should take a screenshot of this, or I need to record this or write down details of it, because it's all happening so fast. It's all happening in the moment. And, you know, you don't think someone is approaching you with bad intentions. You don't think someone has that intent. Obviously, this has now happened after the fact. And after the situation, and hindsight's always going to be 20/20. So I don't know if receipts do exist, but if they do, then this is the perfect time for John to come forward with them. And that would very much substantiate his claim and then back up what he's saying. And then I think we really have to look at the situation in a different light, in a different context. And the thing is, there has been accusations in the past of Drake imitating, of Drake biting styles, of him biting lyrics, of biting creative ideas from other artists. I mean, we did a breakdown video that was documenting those situations of all the times that Drake had similarities between releases that other artists had put out. And then, of course, you have the Drake ghostwriter allegations. You have the Hi Quentin Miller, how are you doing? All those allegations that we know that came forward throughout the Meek Mill beef and all of that. So it's not like this is the first time that we've been here. It's not like this isn't the first time that we're having this conversation. And I think at one point do you go, is there smoke without fire? And also, speaking of borrowing creative ideas, shout out to Freddie Gibbs. He has also taken to Twitter because he does not like the way that this album title was presented, and also the 3 bunnies presented on the back. Because Freddie, if you look at his album, Soul Sold Separately. Well, the S's, much in the same way that Drake and PartyNextDoor's S's, have the cash signs, right? The cash symbol, the dollar signs replacing the S. Also, you see the bunny ears on Freddie Gibbs' album. Now, bunnies and the bunny ears are a consistent theme that Freddie has used for many years, along with replacing the S's with the dollar signs. And as Freddie said, damn, they even stole the rabbits too, I'm flattered. But hey, maybe they pulled a rabbit out of a hat and it was just a creative coincidence. Unfortunately for Drake, when you have a history of this, when you have a pattern of this, anytime that there's an opening, anytime that there's an opportunity to make this connection, well, people are going to jump on it. And are people looking for an excuse to hate Drake at this point in time? Absolutely. Maybe this is all just coincidence. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make him look any better. And all it does is, again, further reinforce what Kendrick Lamar said in his battle with Drake. And it just continues to make Kendrick look more and more like a prophet. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Obviously, I'm not going to be reacting to this full album. The only thing I'm going to do is if there is a song I feel like addresses Kendrick Lamar, addresses the beef that I think is relevant to all the beefs going on and to the hip hop news, then I will break that one down. So let me know if there's any tracks that you want to see me look at that you think connect to that. But besides that, I really have no interest, obviously, in promoting this album and giving it more light on my platform because, well, we're still well aware of the lawsuit and how I feel about him bringing reactors into the equation and how I feel like that affects the reaction community and how it affects our livelihoods. You guys all know that. There's been plenty of videos made about that. But anyways, I'm done for today. Let me know what you think down below. Is he copying? Is he biting? Is this just coincidence? Love to hear your thoughts as always. Also, don't forget to support the channel, guys. knoxhillmusic.com. Go get your shirts. Go get your hats. Go get your hoodies. We got it all. If you want to rep the brand, if you want to get it out there, it really does go a long way. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Stay positive. Take care of your hearts. Take care of your energy. Take care of your mentals. I'll catch you again.
Sit down, sit down. I'm like, wow, how we do it like that? Like, wow, how we do it like that?